It was one of those rushed Tuesday mornings when everything seems to go wrong. Daniel was already running late for his engineering lecture, juggling his backpack, a stack of library books, and a large coffee that he desperately needed after pulling another all-nighter. Working the graveyard shift at a warehouse, then heading straight to morning classes had become his routine. Sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford, not when tuition bills kept piling up. The campus cafe was packed as usual. Students crowded around tables, laptops open, textbooks scattered everywhere. Daniel squeezed through the narrow space between tables, trying not to bump into anyone. He was almost at the door when someone stepped backward without looking. Everything happened in slow motion. Daniel lurched forward, his coffee cup tilting dangerously. He tried to steady it, but it was too late. The lid popped off, and hot coffee splashed everywhere, most of it landing on the cream-colored coat of the woman who had stepped back. "Oh no, I'm so sorry." Daniel's heart sank as he watched the dark stain spread across the expensive-looking fabric. He grabbed napkins from a nearby table, his hands shaking slightly. "I am so sorry. Please let me help clean this up." The woman turned around and Daniel found himself looking into calm green eyes. She was probably in her late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. What struck him most was her reaction. Instead of the anger he expected, she smiled. "It's okay, really. Accidents happen." Her voice was warm, without a trace of irritation. "But your coat, it looks really nice, and now it's ruined and—" Daniel kept dabbing at the stain, making it worse. "I'll pay for the cleaning. I insist." She gently took the napkins from his hand. "You're going to rub a hole through it if you keep going like that. It's just a coat. It'll wash." Daniel looked down at his own worn jeans and faded hoodie, then at her coat, which he was now certain cost more than his entire wardrobe. "Still, I feel terrible. At least let me buy you a coffee to replace the one I basically weaponized." She laughed at that, a genuine sound that made him relax a little. "All right, deal. But only if you let me buy you one too, since yours ended up on me instead of in you." They ended up sitting at a small table by the window, both nursing fresh cups of coffee. Daniel learned her name was Victoria, though she told him to call her Tori. She asked what he was studying, and he found himself talking more than he usually did with strangers. There was something easy about her, the way she listened without judgment, asked questions that showed she was genuinely interested. "So, engineering and 3 jobs? When do you sleep?" Tori asked, leaning forward with real concern in her eyes. Daniel shrugged. "Sleep is overrated. Besides, I'm almost done with my degree. Just 1 more year and then hopefully I can get a decent job and stop living on ramen noodles and coffee." "That's really admirable. Not many people would work that hard." "I don't have much choice," Daniel said honestly. "My parents passed away when I was 19. Car accident. They left some money for my education, but it wasn't enough for everything. So I work, take out loans, and just keep pushing forward. What else can you do, right?" Tori's expression softened. "I'm sorry about your parents. That must have been incredibly hard." It was. Still is sometimes. Daniel wasn't sure why he was opening up to this stranger, but it felt natural. But they always said education was important. They both worked factory jobs their whole lives and wanted me to have more opportunities, so I'm doing this for them as much as for me. They talked for almost an hour before Daniel realized he was now very late for his lecture. He stood up quickly, apologizing again. Tori stood too, pulling out her phone. "Can I get your number? I'd like to stay in touch, if that's okay." Daniel felt his face warm. "Yeah, sure. That would be great." They exchanged numbers and Daniel rushed off to class, his mind spinning. He couldn't stop thinking about her eyes, her smile, the way she'd made him feel comfortable despite the disastrous first impression. Over the next few weeks, they met regularly. Coffee dates turned into lunch meetings, which turned into long walks around campus. Daniel learned that Tori worked in business and was visiting the university for some kind of consulting project. She asked about his classes, his dreams for the future, his favorite books. She told him about her love of architecture, her volunteer work at an animal shelter, her obsession with old movies. What Daniel appreciated most was how normal she made him feel. With Tori, he wasn't the poor scholarship student juggling multiple jobs. He wasn't the guy wearing secondhand clothes or counting coins to afford textbooks. He was just Daniel, someone worth listening to, someone interesting. One evening, about 2 months after they met, they were sitting on a bench near the campus lake, watching the sunset paint the water orange and pink. Daniel had just finished his shift at the campus library and still had his staff badge clipped to his shirt. Can I ask you something? Tori said quietly. Sure, anything. If money wasn't an issue, what would you want to do with your life? Like, if you could do anything at all. Daniel thought about it. Honestly, I'd want to help other kids like me. Kids who lose their parents young, or who don't have family support. I'd create some kind of scholarship program. Maybe mentoring too. Because it's not just about money, you know? It's about having someone who believes in you when things get hard. Tori looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. That's beautiful. You have a good heart, Daniel. He felt embarrassed. It's just a dream. Reality is I'll probably end up working for some engineering firm, paying off student loans for the next 20 years. Maybe. Or maybe life will surprise you. Their relationship deepened as fall turned to winter. Daniel introduced Tori to his small circle of friends, other students who understood the struggle of working through college. She fit in easily, never making anyone feel less than. She wore simple jeans and sweaters when they hung out, ate cheap pizza without complaint, and laughed at inside jokes about their terrible professors. But Daniel noticed little things that didn't quite add up. Her phone was always the newest model. Her casual clothes had designer labels if you looked closely. She occasionally mentioned traveling to places he'd only seen in magazines. When he asked about her family, she became vague, saying they were in real estate and changing the subject quickly. He didn't push it. Everyone had parts of their past they didn't want to share. Besides, he was falling for her hard. The way she looked at him made him feel like he mattered. The way she supported his dreams without trying to fix everything made him feel capable. For the first time since his parents died, he felt like life might actually work out. 3 months after the coffee incident that brought them together, Tori invited him to a family dinner. I want you to meet them, she said. They're important to me, and so are you. Daniel agreed, nervous but excited. He borrowed a decent shirt from his roommate, polished his only pair of dress shoes, and took the address she'd given him. As he stood outside looking at the building, his stomach dropped. This wasn't someone's home. It was the Grand Plaza Hotel, the most expensive place in the city, the kind of place where a single meal could cost what he made in a week. Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Tori. Come to the ballroom. 2nd floor. Can't wait to see you. His hand shook as he walked through the marble lobby, past men in tuxedos and women in evening gowns. Whatever he thought he knew about Tori's life was about to change forever. The ballroom took Daniel's breath away. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls, casting warm light over hundreds of people in formal wear. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Waiters glided between guests carrying trays of champagne and appetizers that looked like tiny works of art. Daniel felt completely out of place in his borrowed shirt and budget dress shoes. He scanned the crowd for Tori, his heart pounding. When he finally spotted her across the room, he barely recognized her. She wore a long emerald dress that probably cost more than his car, her hair styled in elegant waves. She was talking to a group of older people, laughing at something someone said. Then she saw him. Her face lit up and she excused herself, practically running across the ballroom floor. Daniel, you made it! She hugged him tightly, not seeming to notice or care about the curious looks they were getting. Tori, what is this place? You said family dinner. This looks like a wedding or something. Her smile faltered slightly. Right, I should have been more clear. It's a charity gala. My family hosts it every year. Come on. There are some people I want you to meet. Before Daniel could process what was happening, Tori was leading him through the crowd. People nodded at her respectfully, some calling out greetings. She stopped in front of 3 people who had the same elegant, confident air about them. Mom, Dad, Christopher, this is Daniel, the one I've been telling you about. Her mother was a tall woman with perfectly styled gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through him. Her father had a firm handshake and a measuring look. Christopher, who Daniel guessed was her brother, barely glanced up from his phone. So you're the young man who's captured our Victoria's attention, her mother said, her tone impossible to read. She tells us you're studying engineering. Yes, ma'am. Final year at State University. State University, she repeated as if tasting the words. How practical. And what do your parents do? The question hit Daniel like a punch. They passed away, ma'am. A few years ago. Something shifted in her mother's expression, though Daniel couldn't tell if it was sympathy or something else. I see, my condolences. Her father changed the subject, asking about his career plans. Christopher finally looked up from his phone, studying Daniel with obvious skepticism. The conversation felt like an interview, each question designed to probe and evaluate. Tori squeezed his hand supportively, but Daniel could feel himself sweating despite the air conditioning. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes, Tori pulled him away. "I'm sorry about that. They can be a bit intense." "Tori, who are these people?" "Who are you?" Daniel stopped walking, forcing her to face him. "This isn't just some family dinner. Everyone here treats you like you're someone important." She bit her lip, looking more nervous than he'd ever seen her. "Can we go somewhere quieter? I need to explain everything." They ended up on a balcony overlooking the city. The sounds of the gala faded to a gentle murmur behind them. Tori leaned against the railing, not looking at him. "My full name is Victoria Harrington. My family owns Harrington Properties. We have commercial real estate across 15 states, residential developments, shopping centers. The company is worth about $300 million. My father is the CEO. My mother sits on half a dozen corporate boards. Christopher is being groomed to take over eventually." Daniel felt like the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. $300 million? I wanted to tell you earlier. I really did. But every time I tried, I got scared. Tori turned to face him, tears shining in her eyes. "Do you know how many people have pretended to care about me just to get close to my family's money? How many guys have asked me out because they Googled my last name first? So you lied to me instead?" "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. And honestly, Daniel, these past 3 months have been the happiest I've been in years. Because you looked at me and saw Tori. Just Tori, not a bank account or a business connection. You listened to me talk about movies and volunteering at the animal shelter. You cared about what I thought, not what I could buy." Daniel ran his hands through his hair, trying to process everything. "I spilled coffee on a millionaire. Technically, I'm not the millionaire. My parents are." She tried to smile. "And it was a really good icebreaker. This isn't funny, Tori, Victoria, whatever your name is." He paced the balcony. "Your mother looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. Your brother barely acknowledged I exist, and I'm standing here in a borrowed shirt at a party where the appetizers probably cost more than my rent. I know it's a lot. But my feelings for you are real. That hasn't changed." Daniel stopped pacing and looked at her. Despite everything, despite the shock and confusion, he could see the fear in her eyes. Fear that he would walk away, that this revelation would destroy what they had built. "I need some time to think about this," he said quietly. Tori nodded, wiping at her eyes carefully to avoid smearing her makeup. "I understand. Take all the time you need." Daniel left the gala and walked for hours through the city, his mind spinning. He thought about every moment they'd shared, re-examining them through this new lens. She'd never acted superior, never made him feel poor. She'd eaten dollar pizza slices with genuine enjoyment. She'd sat on the floor of his tiny apartment playing video games with his roommate. But she'd also hidden a massive part of her life from him. The next few days were torture. Tori texted him a few times asking if they could talk, but Daniel couldn't bring himself to respond. He threw himself into his work and studies, trying to avoid thinking about her. But everything reminded him of her. The cafe where they met, the bench by the lake where they'd watched sunsets, the library corner where she'd surprised him with homemade cookies once. His roommate, Kevin, finally confronted him about his mood. "Dude, you've been miserable all week." "What happened with Tori?" Daniel told him everything. Kevin listened, then shook his head. "So let me get this straight. You found an amazing girl who makes you happy, who supports your dreams, who treats you with respect, and you're pushing her away because she has money?" "It's not about the money. It's about the lying." "Did she actually lie, though? Or did she just not mention something that she knew would change how you saw her?" Kevin grabbed a soda from the fridge. "Look, I get it. You're proud. You've worked hard for everything you have, but pride is cold comfort when you're alone. You think I'm being stupid. I think you're being scared. That family stuff at the gala freaked you out. But from what you told me, she chose you over all the rich guys who probably throw themselves at her every day. That means something." Daniel spent that night staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in his mind. He thought about how Tori had looked at him when he talked about creating scholarships for kids like him. The way she'd held his hand when he'd broken down talking about his parents. How she'd never once made him feel less than enough. The next morning, he texted her, "Can we meet at the coffee shop?" "Our coffee shop?" She replied within seconds. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Tori was already waiting when Daniel arrived, wearing jeans and an old sweatshirt, looking more like the girl he'd fallen for and less like the heiress from the gala. Her eyes were red and she looked like she hadn't slept well. They sat across from each other, coffee cups between them like before. "I'm sorry," they both said at the same time. Daniel managed a small smile. "You first. I should have told you sooner. I was selfish and scared, and I handled it badly. You deserve to know who you were getting involved with." Tori wrapped her hands around her cup, but I meant what I said. "These months with you have been real. You're real, and I don't want to lose that." "I'm sorry too," Daniel said. "I got overwhelmed and ran away instead of talking to you. And I've been thinking about what you said, about people only seeing your money. That must be really lonely." "It is. You have no idea how lonely." They talked for hours, really talked. Tori told him about growing up rich but isolated, about the pressure to marry someone from the right family, about how exhausting it was to never know if people liked you or your last name. Daniel shared his fears about not being good enough, about feeling like an imposter in her world, about his pride and insecurity. As the sun started setting, Tori reached across the table and took his hand. "I know this is complicated. I know my family will be difficult. I know we come from completely different worlds. But I love you, Daniel. I think I've loved you since you frantically tried to clean coffee off my coat with napkins." Daniel felt his heart skip. "You love me?" "Yes, and I know it's fast and maybe it's crazy, but I do. And I want to figure this out together if you're willing to try." He thought about walking away, about the easy route of avoiding complications. Then he thought about life without her laugh, without her hand in his, without her believing in him the way she did. "I love you too," he said, the words feeling both terrifying and right. "I don't know how this works, but I want to try." Tori's smile was brighter than any chandelier. "Really? Really? Though you should know I'm probably going to mess up a lot. I don't know anything about your world, and I know nothing about working 3 jobs while getting a degree. We'll teach each other." She squeezed his hand. "There's actually something else I need to tell you, but I want to do it right this time. No more big surprises at galas." Daniel laughed nervously. "Should I be worried?" "Maybe a little." She took a deep breath. "Victoria Harrington is asking Daniel Chen if he'll marry her." The words hung in the air between them. Daniel was sure he'd heard wrong. "I'm sorry, what?" "Marry me. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy, but life is too short to waste time being apart when we could be together. I want you, Daniel. Not someday, not eventually. Now." Daniel stared at her, his mind refusing to process what he was hearing. 3 months ago, he'd been a struggling student with no prospects beyond debt and ramen noodles. Now a millionaire heiress was proposing to him in a coffee shop. "Say something," Tori whispered. "Please say something." And somehow, looking into her hopeful, terrified eyes, Daniel found his answer. Daniel heard himself say yes before his brain could catch up with his mouth. Tori's face transformed with joy, and suddenly she was around the table, hugging him so tightly he could barely breathe. Other people in the coffee shop started clapping, having overheard the proposal. Daniel's face burned with embarrassment and happiness all mixed together. Wait, he said, pulling back slightly. "On one condition," Tori's smile faltered. "What condition?" "Prenup. I want a prenuptial agreement that says I get nothing if we divorce. I need everyone to know, especially your family, that I'm not doing this for money." "Daniel, that's not necessary." "It is for me. Please. My pride is already taking a beating here. Let me keep this much." Tori studied his face, then nodded slowly. "Okay. If that's what you need, then okay." They got married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony at the courthouse. Tori's parents didn't attend, though her mother sent a coldly polite message wishing them well. Christopher showed up for 5 minutes, signed as a witness, and left without saying much. Kevin was there, along with 2 of Daniel's co-workers from the warehouse. It wasn't the wedding either of them had probably imagined. But when Daniel slipped the simple gold band onto Tori's finger, none of that mattered. The trouble started almost immediately. Tori's penthouse apartment was beautiful, all floor-to-ceiling windows and modern furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Daniel stood in the doorway with his 2 duffel bags containing everything he owned, feeling like an intruder in a museum. "Welcome home," Tori said, trying to sound cheerful. Home. The word felt wrong. This place had marble countertops and a bathtub bigger than his old bedroom. The view showed half the city spread out below them. Daniel's reflection in the polished floor looked like a smudge on an otherwise perfect picture. "It's really nice," he managed to say. "Your stuff can go in the walk-in closet." "Well, our walk-in closet now." Tori led him to a room that was indeed bigger than his old bedroom. Her clothes took up maybe a quarter of the space. Designer dresses, expensive shoes, handbags with labels he recognized from billboards. Daniel hung up his 5 shirts and felt ridiculous. That first week was an adjustment. Daniel insisted on keeping his part-time jobs and finishing his semester. He'd wake up at 5 in the morning for his warehouse shift while Tori was still sleeping. By the time he got home in the evening, she'd often be at the office or attending some business dinner. They were married, living in the same space, but barely seeing each other. When they were together, the differences in their worlds became impossible to ignore. Tori would order takeout without looking at prices, sometimes spending $100 on dinner without thinking. Daniel still clipped coupons out of habit. She'd mention casually flying to New York for a meeting like it was taking a bus across town. He was still paying off his used car. The worst part was the loneliness. The penthouse was too quiet, too empty. Daniel found himself missing his cramped apartment with Kevin, where they'd argue about whose turn it was to do dishes and share cheap pizza while studying. Here, he ate expensive food alone at a dining table that could seat 12 people. Tori's mother called on the 4th day. Daniel answered Tori's phone by accident, thinking it was his. "Victoria, we need to discuss the situation." Her mother's voice cut through the line like ice. "This is Daniel, Mrs. Harrington." A long pause. "I see. Is my daughter available?" "She's at work. Can I take a message?" "You can tell her that her father—" "And I expect her at the club for lunch on Saturday. Alone. We need to discuss how to handle this marriage with minimal damage to the family reputation." The line went dead before Daniel could respond. He stood there holding the phone, the word damage echoing in his head. When Tori came home that night, she looked exhausted. Her makeup was smudged, and she'd kicked off her heels by the door. Daniel told her about the call. "I'm not going," she said immediately. "They can't talk about you like that. Maybe you should go. Talk to them. They're your family. You're my family now, too." But her voice lacked conviction, and Daniel could see the stress in the tight lines around her eyes. On Saturday, Tori went to lunch with her parents. She came back 3 hours later, her eyes red from crying. She didn't want to talk about it, just went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. Daniel heard her on the phone later, her voice rising and falling but couldn't make out the words. The distance between them grew. Tori was constantly busy with work, taking calls at all hours, leaving early and coming home late. Daniel tried to be understanding, but it was hard not to feel like he was living with a stranger. The passionate woman who had proposed to him in a coffee shop had been replaced by someone who looked at her phone more than she looked at him. By day 7 of their marriage, Daniel had enough. He'd spent the evening alone again, Tori texting that she had to work late. He made himself dinner, ate it while staring at the city lights, and realized he couldn't remember the last time they'd had a real conversation. When Tori finally came home at nearly 11 at night, Daniel was waiting in the living room. "We need to talk," he said. Tori set down her briefcase and nodded wearily. "I know. I can't do this anymore. This isn't a marriage. We're roommates who barely see each other. You're always working, always on your phone, always somewhere else. I feel like I'm living in a hotel, not a home. I'm sorry. Work has been really demanding lately. It's been 7 days, Tori. 7 days of our marriage, and we've probably spent a total of 5 hours actually together." Daniel stood up, pacing. "And when we are together, you seem a million miles away. You're stressed about something. You won't tell me what. Your family clearly hates me. I don't fit into your world, and honestly, I'm not sure you fit into mine anymore either. That's not fair, isn't it? Look at us. You're the COO of a massive company. You go to galas and business meetings. You make more money in a month than I'll probably make in 5 years. And I'm still working at a warehouse, still studying, still trying to figure out what I'm even doing here." Tori's eyes filled with tears. "So what are you saying? You want to leave? We've been married a week and you're already giving up? I'm saying I feel like I don't even know you anymore. The woman I fell in love with had time for me. She cared about us. This version of you just cares about work. You don't understand," Tori whispered. "There are things happening that you don't know about. Then tell me. That's what married people do. They talk to each other. They share things. Daniel ran his hands through his hair in frustration. I've been patient. I've tried to understand. But you won't let me in. You won't tell me what's going on. How am I supposed to help you if you won't talk to me? Tori sank onto the couch, her whole body seeming to collapse. She put her face in her hands and her shoulders started shaking. Daniel's anger faded, replaced by concern. He'd seen her upset before, but never like this. Never so completely broken. Tori. He sat down beside her carefully. What's wrong? Please, just talk to me. She looked up at him, mascara running down her cheeks, and Daniel's heart clenched. He'd never seen such raw fear in someone's eyes. I'm sick, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I have cancer. The words didn't make sense at first. Daniel stared at her, waiting for her to say she was joking or that he'd misheard, but she just looked at him with those terrified eyes, tears streaming down her face. What? The word came out strangled. Breast cancer. Stage 2. I was diagnosed 6 months ago, right before we met. Tori's words came faster now, like a dam breaking. I've been doing treatment, chemotherapy. That's why I'm always tired. Why I'm always at appointments I can't tell you about. The calls, the stress, it's all about the cancer. Daniel felt like he couldn't breathe. 6 months? You've known for 6 months and you didn't tell me. I couldn't. At first I didn't know you well enough. Then when I fell in love with you, I was scared you'd only stay out of pity. And then I thought maybe if we got married, if we had that commitment, maybe then you'd stay even after you found out. You married me while hiding that you have cancer? Daniel stood up, his mind reeling. How could you do that? How could you not tell me something so important? Because I was terrified. Tori stood too, her voice breaking. I was terrified that you'd leave, that you'd look at me and only see someone sick, that you'd stay out of obligation instead of love. I wanted to be just Tori to you, not Tori the cancer patient. So instead you lied. Again. First about the money, now about this. What else haven't you told me? I didn't want to burden you with it. You already have so much to deal with. Burden me. I'm your husband. Daniel's voice rose. That's what marriage is. You're supposed to burden each other. You're supposed to share the hard things. But instead you kept this massive life-changing secret from me. I know I should have told you. But I was scared, Daniel. I'm still scared. She wrapped her arms around herself. The treatment isn't going as well as they hoped. They want to do more aggressive chemo. I might need surgery. And I just wanted to have something normal, something good before everything got worse. Daniel stared at her, emotions crashing through him like waves. Anger at the deception, fear for her health, guilt for being angry when she was dealing with something so terrible. Confusion about what any of this meant. I need air, he said finally. I need to think. Daniel, please don't go. Not now. But he was already grabbing his jacket, already heading for the door. He couldn't think in that apartment, couldn't process any of this with her crying in front of him. He needed space, needed time to understand what he was feeling. I'll be back, he said, though he wasn't sure if that was true. I just need time. He left Tori standing in their perfect empty penthouse, crying for a marriage that was only 7 days old and already falling apart. The elevator ride down felt like descending into a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. Outside, the night air was cold, but Daniel barely felt it. He just walked with no destination in mind, trying to figure out what he was supposed to do now. His wife had cancer. His wife had cancer and hadn't told him. The woman he loved was sick, possibly dying, and she'd kept it secret because she thought he'd leave. The thought made him sick to his stomach. What kind of person did she think he was? But then another thought crept in, quiet and terrible. If she'd told him about the cancer before proposing, would he have said yes? Or would he have convinced himself he was staying out of pity, not love? Would he have run away, too scared to handle the weight of it all? Daniel didn't have an answer, and that uncertainty felt like the worst betrayal of all. Daniel walked for hours through the city streets, his mind spinning in circles. The night air was freezing, but he barely noticed. Every time he tried to organize his thoughts, they scattered again like leaves in the wind. Cancer. Tori had cancer. His wife of 7 days had been fighting cancer alone for 6 months. He found himself at the 24-hour diner near campus, the one where he used to study during his breaks from the warehouse job. The familiar smell of coffee and bacon grease was oddly comforting. He slid into a booth and ordered coffee he didn't want just to have something to hold. His phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Tori. Please come home. I'm sorry. We need to talk. I love you. He couldn't bring himself to respond. What was he supposed to say? The waitress, an older woman named Ruth, who'd served him countless times during his late-night study sessions, refilled his cup without being asked. You look like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, honey. Something like that, Daniel muttered. Wife troubles? She nodded at his wedding ring, still shiny and new. How'd you guess? Been wearing one of these for 35 years. I know that look. She sat down across from him uninvited, the way she always did during slow nights. Want to talk about it? Daniel surprised himself by talking. He told her everything, the words pouring out. Meeting Tori, the wealth gap, the quick marriage, the loneliness, and finally the cancer diagnosis he'd just learned about. Ruth listened without interrupting, occasionally refilling his coffee. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. That's a lot for a young couple to handle. She lied to me. Again. First about the money, now about being sick. How am I supposed to trust her? She didn't lie exactly. She kept something to herself because she was scared. Ruth folded her hands on the table. My daughter had cancer, ovarian. She was 28 when they found it. Daniel looked up. Is she okay? She is now. 5 years in remission. But I remember how scared she was, how it changed her. Cancer doesn't just attack your body. It attacks everything you think you know about yourself and your future. Ruth's eyes were distant. She pushed her boyfriend away at first. Told him to leave, that she didn't want him to stay out of pity. You know what he did? What? He told her that was his choice to make, not hers. That she didn't get to decide for him whether he could handle it. That marriage or love or whatever you want to call commitment means you don't get to protect the other person from the hard parts. You face them together. But she should have told me before we got married. Maybe. Probably. But she's 28 years old and terrified. People don't always make the best choices when they're scared. Ruth stood up, patting his shoulder. Question is, what are you going to do now? You can be angry she didn't tell you, which is fair. Or you can be there for her now that you know. Both are valid. But you can't do both forever. After Ruth left to help other customers, Daniel sat with those words. He thought about the vows he'd made just 7 days ago. For better or worse. In sickness and in health. At the time, they'd felt like pretty words. Traditional phrases, people said. He hadn't actually thought about what they meant. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Kevin. Dude, Tori called me. She's worried sick, literally, call her. Daniel stared at the message. Then he looked at his wedding ring. He thought about Tori's face when she'd proposed in the coffee shop full of hope and love. He thought about her tears tonight. The fear in her eyes when she finally told him the truth. She'd been carrying this alone for 6 months. Fighting cancer alone. Facing the possibility of dying alone. And then she'd met him. And for the first time, maybe she'd felt like she didn't have to be alone anymore. But she'd been too scared to trust him with the truth. Daniel paid for his coffee and headed back to the penthouse. The walk gave him time to think about what he wanted to say. By the time he reached their building, the sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Tori was curled up on the couch, still in her work clothes, her eyes red and swollen. She jumped up when he walked in. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I should have told you. I should have trusted you. I understand if you want to leave, if this is too much. I'll sign whatever you need for an annulment. Stop, Daniel said quietly. Just stop talking for a minute. He sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. Tori stood there, looking terrified and fragile in a way he'd never seen before. All the anger he'd felt earlier had burned itself out during his long walk. What was left was something more complicated. I'm not leaving, he said finally. I'm angry and I'm hurt that you didn't trust me enough to tell me. But I'm not leaving. You're not? I made vows. For better or worse. In sickness and in health. I meant those words, and he looked up at her. But you need to understand something. We can't have a marriage if you keep hiding things from me. I can't help you if you won't let me in. I can't be your partner if you treat me like I'm too fragile to handle the truth. Tori sank down beside him, keeping a careful distance. I know, you're right. I've been doing everything alone for so long I forgot how to let someone help me. Tell me everything. From the beginning. No more secrets, so she did. She told him about finding the lump during a self-exam, the terror of waiting for test results, the diagnosis that had turned her world upside down. She told him about the first round of chemotherapy, how sick it made her, how she'd had to hide it from everyone at work. She explained the medication that made her tired and foggy, the constant doctor's appointments she'd been sneaking away to attend. The calls you've been taking, the late nights, they're not all work. Daniel asked. Some are work, but a lot of them are my oncologist or the treatment center or my support group. She twisted her hands together. I've been trying to keep the company running while dealing with this, and it's been overwhelming. My parents know, obviously. They wanted me to step down from my position, to focus on treatment, but I couldn't. The company is all I've had for so long. If I lost that too, I don't know what I'd have left. You'd have me, Daniel said. Tori's eyes filled with tears again. Would I? That's what I was so scared of. That you'd stay because you felt obligated. Not because you wanted to. That you'd look at me and only see someone sick. I wanted to be your wife, not your patient. You can be both. You are both. Daniel took her hand carefully. But you have to let me in. You have to tell me when you're hurting, when you're scared, when you need help. That's what marriage is supposed to be. I don't know how to do that. I've been handling everything alone since I was a kid. My parents taught me that showing weakness is failing. Then we'll figure it out together. He squeezed her hand. Starting now. Tell me what's happening with your treatment. What did the doctors say? Tori took a shaky breath. The first round of chemo didn't shrink the tumor as much as they hoped. They want to try a more aggressive treatment, something experimental, but it has harder side effects. I'll probably lose my hair. I'll be really sick for a while, and there's no guarantee it will work. When do you start? Next week. I have a consultation appointment on Tuesday. I'm coming with you. Daniel, you have classes, work. I can't ask you to drop everything. You're not asking. I'm telling you, I'm your husband. I'm coming to your appointments. He turned to face her fully. And you need to tell your job you're taking time off. You can't run a company while fighting cancer. That's not sustainable. But the board, my parents, they'll see it as weakness. Let them. Your health is more important than proving yourself to people who should already believe in you. Daniel felt a surge of protectiveness. And honestly, if your parents are more worried about the company than about you being sick, then they're not people whose opinions should matter. Tori laughed, but it came out as a sob. They called this marriage damage control. Did I tell you that? Your mom mentioned something like that on the phone. They want me to get it quietly annulled. Say it was a mistake made under stress from my diagnosis. They've already talked to lawyers about the least scandalous way to handle it. She looked at him with heartbreak in her eyes. They care more about protecting the family image than about the fact that I'm fighting for my life. Daniel felt a white-hot anger rise in his chest. Then forget them. You don't need their approval or their support. You have mine. You say that now, but this is going to get really hard. I'm going to be sick and scared and probably really difficult to deal with. The chemo might not work. I might get sicker. This might not have a happy ending. Maybe not, but we'll face it together. Daniel pulled her close and she collapsed against him, finally letting herself break down completely. He held her while she cried, feeling her shake against him. They sat like that for a long time, watching the sun rise through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city below was waking up, people starting their normal days, having no idea that in this penthouse, a young couple was trying to figure out how to fight the biggest battle of their lives. I'm scared, Tori whispered. Me too, Daniel admitted. But we'll figure it out. One day at a time, one appointment at a time, together. She pulled back to look at him, her face blotchy and her eyes swollen. I don't deserve you. Yeah, you do. You deserve someone who's going to stick around when things get hard. You deserve a real partner. He wiped tears from her cheeks. And I deserve a wife who trusts me enough to tell me when she's struggling. So we're both going to have to get better at this. Tori managed a small smile. I love you. Even if I'm really bad at showing it sometimes. I love you too. Even when you make terrible decisions about what to tell me and when. He kissed her forehead. But no more secrets. Promise me. Whatever happens from here, we're honest with each other. I promise. No more secrets, and good, now you need to sleep. When was the last time you actually rested? I don't remember. Daniel stood up, pulling her with him. Come on, we're both exhausted. Everything else can wait until we've had some actual sleep. They went to the bedroom, and for the first time since they'd gotten married, they actually went to bed together. Not as strangers sharing a space, but as partners facing an uncertain future. Tori fell asleep almost immediately, her head on Daniel's chest. He stayed awake a while longer, thinking about everything that had changed in the last 12 hours. He was married to someone with cancer. His wife might die. His in-laws hated him. He had no idea how to navigate any of this, but as he felt Tori breathing steadily against him, he knew he'd made the right choice to come back. Whatever happened next, they'd face it together. The next morning, Daniel called his professors and his warehouse supervisor. He explained that he needed to reduce his hours, that his wife was sick and needed him. His supervisor was understanding, letting him switch to weekend shifts only. His professors were less sympathetic, warning him about falling behind. Daniel didn't care. For once in his life, grades and money weren't the most important things. Tuesday came, and they went to Tori's oncology appointment together. Daniel held her hand in the waiting room, surrounded by other patients at various stages of treatment. Some had lost their hair, some looked healthy, some looked tired beyond words. It was sobering, seeing the reality of what they were facing. Dr. Patel, Tori's oncologist, was a kind woman in her 50s who treated Daniel like he'd been there from the beginning. She explained the treatment plan in terms he could understand, didn't sugarcoat the risks, but also offered hope. "The good news is that you're young and otherwise healthy," Dr. Patel said. "Your body can handle aggressive treatment better than many patients. The experimental protocol I'm recommending has shown promising results in cases like yours." "What are the side effects?" Daniel asked, while Tori seemed too overwhelmed to speak. Dr. Patel listed them. Nausea, fatigue, hair loss, increased infection risk, possible nerve damage, and a dozen other things that made Daniel's stomach turn. But at the end, she said the words that mattered most. "There's a 70% chance of remission with this treatment." 70%. Not a guarantee, but better odds than Daniel had feared. He looked at Tori, who had tears streaming down her face. "Okay," Tori said quietly. "Let's do it." The first chemotherapy session was 3 days later. Daniel took Tori to the treatment center, a surprisingly bright and comfortable place that tried hard not to feel like a hospital. He sat beside her for 6 hours while the drugs dripped into her IV, reading to her when she felt up to it, holding her hand when she didn't. She was sick that night. Really sick. Daniel held her hair back while she threw up, got her water, changed the sheets when she couldn't make it to the bathroom in time. It was messy and unpleasant and nothing like the romantic vision of marriage he'd once had. But somehow taking care of her felt right. Like this was what he was supposed to be doing. "I'm sorry," Tori kept saying between bouts of nausea. "This is so gross. You shouldn't have to see me like this, and stop apologizing. This is what in sickness means." Daniel wiped her face with a cool cloth. "Besides, you're still beautiful, even if you are turning an interesting shade of green." She laughed weakly. "Liar. Okay, maybe not beautiful right this second, but I love you anyway." The weeks that followed established a new rhythm. Daniel organized his entire life around Tori's treatment schedule. He learned to cook simple, bland foods that she could keep down. He figured out which smells made her nauseous and which helped. He became an expert at managing her medication schedule, knowing exactly when she needed anti-nausea pills or pain relievers. Kevin came by often, bringing Daniel's schoolwork and helping him keep up with classes. "You're a good husband," Kevin said one afternoon while Tori was sleeping. "Not many guys would handle this so well. I'm just doing what anyone would do." "No, you're not. Anyone would be overwhelmed. You're actually showing up." Kevin squeezed his shoulder. "She's lucky to have you." The hardest day came 3 weeks into treatment. Daniel woke up to find Tori in the bathroom holding clumps of her hair. It was falling out in handfuls, dark strands covering the white tile floor. She was crying silently, staring at her reflection. Daniel stood in the doorway, not sure what to say. What comfort could he offer for this? "It's happening," Tori whispered. "Dr. Patel said it would, but I thought maybe I'd be lucky. Maybe it wouldn't happen to me." Daniel stepped into the bathroom and knelt beside her. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. I look like I'm falling apart. Do you want to cut it? That way you're in control of it." Tori looked at him, then back at her reflection. Slowly, she nodded. "Will you help me?" Daniel had never cut anyone's hair before, but he borrowed clippers from Kevin and did his best. He started long, giving Tori a short pixie cut that actually looked pretty good, but more hair kept falling out, leaving patchy spots. Finally, Tori asked him to just shave it all off. "Are you sure?" Daniel asked. "I don't want to watch it fall out piece by piece. Just get rid of it." So he did, carefully shaving her head while she cried quietly. When he finished, Tori looked at herself in the mirror. She looked different, vulnerable. But Daniel meant it when he said, "You're still beautiful." "I look sick. You look like someone who's fighting. That's different." He kissed the top of her smooth head. "And we'll get you some really cool scarves. Maybe some funky wigs for when you feel up to it." Tori turned to hug him, and they sat on the bathroom floor surrounded by her hair, holding each other while she cried. Daniel cried too, finally letting out some of the fear and stress he'd been holding in. They were both terrified, both exhausted, but they were in it together. The surprising thing was how other people reacted. Kevin started organizing meal trains with other students, people Daniel barely knew dropping off food so he didn't have to cook. His warehouse supervisor sent a care package with fuzzy socks and magazines. Even some of his professors eased up, giving him extensions without him having to ask. But the biggest surprise came from Tori's family. Her mother called one evening while Daniel was helping Tori into bed after a particularly rough day. "How is she?" Mrs. Harrington asked, her voice different than Daniel remembered. Softer, worried. "She's fighting. Some days are better than others. I'd like to visit, if that's acceptable." Daniel looked at Tori, who nodded weakly. "Tomorrow afternoon works." Mrs. Harrington showed up the next day with expensive fruit baskets and an awkward energy. She stood in the penthouse looking uncomfortable, like she didn't quite know how to be there. Tori was on the couch, wrapped in blankets, wearing one of the scarves Daniel had bought her. "Mom," Tori said quietly. "Victoria." Mrs. Harrington sat down carefully, keeping her distance. "You look thin. The treatment makes it hard to eat." An uncomfortable silence fell. Daniel started to leave to give them privacy, but Tori grabbed his hand. "Stay. Please." So he sat beside her, and they both watched as Mrs. Harrington seemed to struggle with something. Finally she spoke. "I owe you an apology. Both of you." She looked at Daniel. "I judged you unfairly. I assumed you were after our money, that this marriage was a mistake. I was wrong." Daniel didn't know what to say. "Christopher told me how you've been caring for Victoria, how you rearranged your entire life to be here for her, how you fight with the insurance company and research treatment options and hold her hair when she's sick." Mrs. Harrington's voice cracked slightly. "That's what love looks like, real love. Not the society marriages I was pushing for." "Christopher was here?" Tori asked, surprised. "He's been checking on you." "Quietly. He feels guilty about how he treated you both." Mrs. Harrington reached into her purse. "Your father and I want to help. We've been selfish, focusing on the business and our reputation instead of what matters. Let us pay for your treatment. Let us help however we can." Tori and Daniel exchanged glances. Daniel's pride wanted to refuse, but he was learning that sometimes accepting help wasn't weakness. "Thank you," Tori said softly. "That would help a lot." Mrs. Harrington stood up to leave, but paused at the door. "Daniel, I was wrong about you. You're exactly what my daughter needs, what she deserves. I'm sorry it took me so long to see that." After she left, Tori turned to Daniel with wonder in her eyes. "Did that really just happen?" "I think your mom just apologized to me. She never apologizes. To anyone." Tori laughed, then started crying. Maybe good things can still happen, even in the middle of all this. The months that followed were hard. The treatment made Tori sicker before she got better.